Welcome back. This and each and every episode of the Hook It podcast is supported by 35 Bikes. 35 Bikes are dedicated to bringing you the best bike components for the best prices. And they've also just launched a new product, which is custom stem caps. You can have absolutely anything you want on a stem cap. Minimum order is just one. You can have a choice of 10 different colors, free design service, and quick turnaround in time for Christmas. So a good little Christmas gift for a mate. If you're interested, just get in touch, 35bikes.com, or hit us up at hookitproducts.co.uk too. Use the contact form, let us know what you want, and we'll come straight back to you with a design. It's that simple. Also, if you want anything else from 35 Bikes, go to the website, 35bikes.com, enter promo code podcast, and you'll get 20% off, and also free shipping. What's not to love? Bada bosh, bada bing. This episode is also supported by Saxx Underwear. Saxx is the fastest growing underwear brand on planet Earth, and they also, amazingly, make the best underwear on planet Earth. For more information, you can head to saxxunderwear.com, but I do advise that you check out the Kinetic or the Quest 2.0 underwear. They're unbelievable. Each pair features their ballpark pouch, which is like a little nest for your gentleman's nether regions. They're all moisture wicking. They're all a slight compression fit too, so they don't roll up and give you that midday wedgie, which all us guys hate. And they look cool too. So if you have got your pants around your ankles, which does happen, you can look good while doing it. Simple as that. All right, let's get on with this podcast.
Welcome to the Hook It podcast, endorsed by @ODub_23. Add me, tag me, follow me, please follow me.
That's how we start a podcast. Rad. All right, guys, welcome back. Another episode of the Hook It podcast. This is episode number 38. Can you Adam and Eve it? Number 38. As usual, I know I'm like a stuck record, but I want to say a massive thank you to every single person who listens. If you're a new listener, then welcome. If you've been around for a while, then huge props and thank you for the continued support. As it's the end of the year, it's been cool to sort of, look back, and I've made a list of all the guests we've had on for the guest of the year, and some of the people we've had on have been incredible, and the support and feedback from you guys is just mind-blowing. So thank you so much. Please keep it coming. If you haven't left a review on iTunes for the podcast, please head over and do it. It makes a massive difference. You wouldn't even believe how much good it can do. So please do that. 5 stars if you can. Leave a little funny comment. It really helps. Guest of the Year competition too. If you haven't voted for your Guest of the Year, then I urge you to do that. A bunch of the guests have sent over some prizes, which are going to go into the Christmas hamper, and that will then be given away to somebody who's filled out the form and sort of given us your Guest of the Year and what you think of the podcast and all that sort of stuff. There's a link for that in the show description, so just click it, go through, fill it out, boom, and there's so much cool stuff in there. There's signed goodies from Craig Evans, Josh Lewis, Ollie from Sendermag sent us a few copies of Sendermag. Ben Deakin sent some socks. We've got Pin TV stuff. Kathy Sessler sent some merch from the Syndicate. It's crazy. Hannah Barnes signed goodies too. Oh man, there's so much stuff in there. Obviously there'll be 35 bikes, brake pads, brake rotors, mud guards, Saxx underwear too from those guys, so please do that. The draw for the Guest of the Year will be the 19th, which is a Tuesday. It'll be done live on Instagram and Facebook, so make sure you're following us, and then you'll figure out if you've won or not. Not entirely sure on time. It's probably going to be 7, 8, but I'll keep you guys posted on that. And that's it. thanks again. Let's get on with the show. Brett Tippie, been on the guest list for a while. Let's goddamn do it. All right, yeah, we are rocking and rolling. I need to put on my different podcast host, radio host voice.
Different voice. Hello there, and we're live.
I know I just said it before, man, but so it's on record too. Thanks so much for doing this.
Thanks for having me.
No, man, not at all. Thank you. You've been on the guest list for on the hit list for a little while. I've been wanting to reach out and stuff, but this
I'm sure I'm on a few hit lists, so good and bad.
So yeah, thanks again, man. It's much appreciated. I'm gonna guess this is probably your first podcast too, right?
Have I done a podcast before? I guess not. With Ryan Leach, I did one. Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow, that's cool because Ryan did one many years ago.
Oh, did he? Yeah, he had me on one of his that we sat down at a table and just hammed it up for a bit, and it was interesting. So yeah,
so you didn't
bust my cherry.
But damn it.
Damn it.
I've popped a few cherries on this thing, but I wish I'd got yours. Never mind, it's all good. It's all good.
Yeah, there you go. I gotta be honest.
No, I noticed that on iTunes a while ago that Ryan Leach had one. But yeah, I don't know, man. This thing's kind of blown up over the last sort of year or so. It's crazy. We've had some awesome guests, obviously like yourself, who have been great. And it seems to be growing and growing. So just keeping going, keeping it organic too, man. I'm not too keen on like heavily pushing it and stuff. It just let people come to us and let it do its thing. It's really cool.
That's awesome, yeah.
So I usually like to start these things off by sort of asking you a little bit about your childhood. I know that's not too deep, but
my childhood, yeah, no problem. I had a great childhood.
Kind of figuring out, where you grew up and stuff like that, and how you ended up becoming a mountain biker, really.
Okay, yeah, I was born in Vancouver and spent a number of years in different suburbs of Vancouver. Mm-hmm. Grade 1 was in Calgary, Alberta. Our kindergarten was, and grade 1 was Red Deer, Alberta, and then I lived in grade 2 out on a lake, like 2.5 hours in the bush from Kamloops. My dad was a school teacher, so we're in a one-room school. And then I spent grade 3 in Texas, Houston, Texas, in the States.
Nice. And
then we moved to Kamloops. I lived there ever since.
Okay.
But all the way along, my dad, rode bicycles as a young kid, and he'd always take me on bicycle rides, and we'd ride from town out into the countryside, however, many kilometers or miles or whatever it was away. Yeah. And he would bring some art supplies, and he'd end up setting up and doing some sketching out in the hills, or in the countryside. Uh-huh. And he'd take those sketches and he'd turn them into paintings, and he would sell the paintings.
No way.
He was a school teacher, but we'd end up riding miles and miles to get to the countryside and back. And I was a little kid, just like pedaling along. So, I was literally mountain biking,
yeah.
Off-road bicycling anyways, at the very least, in the 70s.
Wow.
And it was a real bond I had with my dad, and it was cool. And all the places that we go along, he knew what a thrill it was to go downhill. So he used to drop me off on shuttles in the 70s, like up on the top of the hill. Whether they were like somewhere like cement shuttles, I'd take like a 5-speed or 10-speed and just really hammering these downhills. Yeah. And then some of them would be off-road, like even on like BMXs and bikes that were precursors to a real mountain bike.
Wow.
And so I was shuttling way back in the 70s and 80s as well. So he was into it.
Yeah, for sure.
And I found out years later that he rode a teeter-totter in the 50s that was at his school in Alberta. And so he rode a teeter-totter in the 50s, like a North Shore typical move,
Yeah.
Pretty. Well, he did it once and once only, but he did do it.
That's crazy, man.
Yeah, grew up riding, 5-speed, 10-speeds, BMXs when eventually they came out. My parents got me a couple dirt bikes. Mm-hmm. And so always just loved bikes. And they found a photo of me with a tricycle that they put into my crib. And I woke up and there was this giant tricycle there. And I'm just like, they got the photos. I woke up and I'm reaching out for the bike, like with the look of bike love on my face. So it was pretty cool. So I've been very fortunate to have great parents who are into, sports and cycling and whatnot. So it I'm very blessed there.
Yeah, for sure. It sounds like you've had some awesome experiences too with your dad, and the sketching thing's really cool. Do you think like that really inspired you when you were younger to get into sort of photography and like the artistic side of mountain biking, maybe?
Oh, I would say yes. Like even actually directly doing art myself. I used to do a lot of sketching, and then I would take blank T-shirts. I'd buy 100 blank beefy T-shirts, and I would draw on them with embroidery pens, and then airbrush the backgrounds. And I would do like mountain bikers or snowboarders or skiers or animals or people's Mustang cars or hot rods, or their Harley, whatever I could make money at, and I would custom paint T-shirts.
Wow.
And it was a way to have some extra money for beer money when I used to drink, and or entry fees for snowboard races when I was like racing amateur and stuff, and lift tickets, etc. And that was directly from my dad doing art.
Wow.
And as I moved into being a free rider, the hunt for a good shot, it's very similar to the hunt for a good painting. You're trying to get the composition just right, and it really helps you have an eye for what would be a good shot. And if there's a big tree over there, you got two small trees there, it kind of bounces out. And if you ride through the center and just trying to get the good shot, right? And so it's been a lifelong pursuit of getting the shot, whether it's a painting or an airbrush T-shirt or a photo with Marcus Riga or Ali DeLillo or Sterling Lawrence or whoever, right? So it's definitely been ingrained in my brain, and something I still enjoy today.
For sure. That's awesome, man. That's super cool. Like, so as you were growing up then, was there any other sports you were really into, or are you pretty much, I mean, I know you've got a pretty good, very, very good snowboard background, but, was there anything else other than mountain biking and snowboarding that you're into?
Oh yeah. Like those didn't come along till later. Like I grew up doing little league baseball.
Right.
And I played hockey as any good Canadian kid should.
Okay.
Ice hockey.
Yeah.
I played rugby.
Right.
We won the Okanagan Championships, which is the Central British Columbia. I did a little bit of archery. I did some basketball. I wasn't very good at basketball.
Okay. Any football?
I was on the B team. You know what? I loved football, and actually, we won the BC Championships in high school 2 years in a row, and I was captain of the defense.
Yeah.
And my nickname was Headbutt. Because
I don't know why.
I had no doubt. I had a really hard head, and I just loved tackling people, and I would just line people up. The biggest dudes, the better, and it would just come running into my head, whack, and that was my secret weapon. And I was a very well-read kid, very polite and whatnot. But then I realized I had this super hard head, and I would knock people out. Like I would see them do the chicken on the ground, and I'm standing there like, "What's this problem?" And they're just like, "You're crazy, dude." And I'm like, "What?" And so they called me Headbutt, made me captain of the defense,
right.
And I actually got a tryout with the professional football team right out of high school.
No way.
The BC Lions were the BC development camp out of the top 100 dudes, and it was quite an honor.
Wow.
But I saw some of the injuries that some people would get, blown out knees, and it's just a number. And I think they want you to do steroids if you go to a university or whatnot. And it was, no one told me that, but it was insinuated kind of, and
yeah.
I wasn't into it. And I just saw how everyone was just a number,
Well, it's crazy too how much money's in college football and how they don't get paid like a single penny. It's crazy.
Exactly.
It's like so $1 billion industry.
I was like, I'm just gonna go do those things. So yeah, I probably could have made a bunch of money, if I ever became a professional football player. But maybe I would have, blown a knee on the way, and so I never did find out.
Maybe. So, snowboarding then. So how did the snowboarding thing kind of come around? Because from what I've read, you're a really, really good snowboarder, competed at national level and all sorts of cool stuff. So how did that happen?
Yeah, I competed on the World Cup.
On the World Cup, that's right. Okay.
Yeah. I actually hand-built a snowboard after I saw an ad in a Action Now magazine that covered like a multitude of different sports. There was no snowboard magazines back in the day. There wasn't even snowboarding. But there was a little ad like this big. And so I used my new high school math skills and I gridded it out, and I did a drawing, a cardboard mock-up of it, and then I made it out of plywood in my dad's wood shop.
What?
And it had like BMX tires for bindings that I kind of cut in strips and then just kind of like looped them over and stuck my feet under them.
Right.
I had inner tubes over the heels to keep my feet in the bindings. I had giant fins on it, and I hand painted it and varnished it, and it was just like a chunk of wood that I would like snowboard down the mountain. But
Right.
it worked.
Yeah.
And going back to my dad, if I would have listened to him, he was watching me make this little chunk of wood, and he's like, "Why don't you go down to the sports swap and get one of those mono skis, put some bindings on it sideways. There's some certain ski bindings that clip in the middle, so we won't have the toe and heel over drag.
Mm-hmm.
You'll have edges. You'll have a plastic P-Tex bottom." I'm like, no, Dad. It's got to be short and fat and wide and wood. I know what I'm doing. And he's like, okay. And then there I was racing World Cup, giant slalom and Super G years later, and I was on a board that was tall, thin, skinny. That was exactly what he was telling me to make in the early 80s. And if I would have listened to him, I would have been light years ahead of everybody in the world. And he knew it, or he thought he knew it. And I was like, nope, I know what I'm doing. So he's like, okay. But so I raced for years amateur,
Okay.
Just around BC, hitchhiking, low budget guy.
Yeah.
And, I competed against little guys like Ross Bagley, who went on to win the gold medal in snowboarding in 98. And then he was, later became my teammate on the national team. But, I raced and used to free ride all the different various hills in BC that I could get to.
Yeah.
And I met Craig Kelly, who was a 6-time world champion, and he talked me into competing professionally.
Okay.
And I was like, oh, really? I don't know. And he goes, oh, you're fast. You should. And I was like, oh, maybe. And I don't know a speed suit or anything. He goes, I'll sell you mine. So he sold me a speed suit that he won the U.S. Open in for $150 or like $800. And so I went down to the next race, and on the first run, we tied. I tied my hero. And he ended up getting 10th in the race. I got 11th overall, and it was my first big pro race. And I was like right in there with all the big dogs, and I was just like, wow. Mm-hmm. So then I hit the whole circuit, and I ended up getting 7th in the U.S.
Wow.
On the U.S. pro circuit.
Okay. And is this like dual slalom, or what are we
giant
slalom?
Before now it's dual. They go side by side.
Yeah.
The courses are shorter and tighter. It's all compact. Used to be quite fast and wide open. Giant slalom, 100% at a time.
Okay.
And it was very enjoyable. So I raced, different pro events for years. And then I made the national team for snowboarding. And then I was 4th in Canada for 3 years in a row. And then it was the year of the Olympics, and we're all trying to make the Olympic team. And only the top 4 from every country got to go.
Yeah.
And I thought I would make it because I was 4th for 3 years in a row. And we had 4 time trials. And I got a 3rd, a 4th, and then I got a 6th. Wow. And I was like, I got to get back into the top 4. And then I blew it, and I blew a heel turn, and I got 10th. So I missed the Olympics. And then my buddy went and won the gold medal. So it was kind of crazy. But so then I got into snowboard cross, which I'd kind of done a little bit already. Mm-hmm. And I won a number of different pro events in Canada, and I won actually the Canadian National Grand Nationals in 2000. And I got 11th in the World Championships. And it was a big thing. I rode for Burton Snowboards, which was a big dream of mine as a snowboarder.
Yeah.
And I used mountain biking as a tool to train in the summer. Have some fun, get some kicks. But, to keep fit and to have a fun time. So mountain biking was actually a summer job for my main focus and passion, which was snowboarding all through the 90s.
Awesome. I'm wondering too, so you didn't have a day job or anything. You pretty much turned pro, 20 years of age or something?
Oh, no, I had a lot of day jobs. I had a lot of jobs. I was planting trees for years.
Oh.
You take these little trees like this high and you put them in bags on your hips, and they're like 18 cents a tree or 20 cents a tree, 22 cents a tree, depending on how steep and rocky the terrain was.
Right.
And so you plant 1,000 trees a day, at 20 cents a tree, you made $200.
Yeah.
So if you plant 1,500, you made $300. So, we're out there just racing in the hills with a shovel and planting as many trees as we could, trying to make bucks, and sometimes you'd have big days where the ground was easy. Uh-huh. And, you'd have $400 days.
Wow.
but you're exhausted. Like you were just literally going all day long, hiking up and down these mountains, which turned out to be great training for snowboarding and biking because you're just like a chunk of muscle, and you're healthy mountain air, and you're balancing on logs and up and down rock faces and just pounding trees into the ground.
Right.
So your lower back is strong, your legs are strong.
Yeah.
I got really bored doing it because I was just going mental, pounding like 1,500 trees a day. But it was actually physical training. But
Yeah.
I did that. I did some paving of highways. I served tables.
Right.
I was like a bus boy. I dug ditches, fence posts. Yeah, a bunch of just random things, a little bit of construction.
Okay.
But then, I started racing pro in '91, and then started getting paid to mountain bike in '97 from Rocky Mountain, and
wow. I think I was reading some cool stuff earlier how you used to gravel board. That looks like the gnarliest thing I think I've ever seen. Going down a hill on a snowboard on gravel looks crazy.
Oh, gravel boarding, yeah, it was a little bit. It was like you didn't want to crash.
No,
that's for sure. So you really, learn that, and there's like there's sandboarding, which is kind of slow because it's sandy and gritty, and it's not as fast as you think down a hill. And then you've got your gravel boarding, which is quite fast, but if you try and stick an edge, it's hard to turn, and you crash, it hurts because it's rocks, right? But if you could find these certain sand pits or gravel pits that had a mixture of sand and gravel together, you could still haul ass on the rocks, but there was sand enough you could sink an edge and carve turns.
Wow.
And it was great training.
Yeah.
And so, I would get to these first races, and some people would be like, oh, it's early in the winter, there's low snow conditions. And I'm like, whatever, I've been carving gravel all summer. Get the hell out of my way. It was awesome. But super fun and just kind of different, and it's just all out there. So that really helped my success in the beginning, because on the snowboard, as you fly down, you can't really turn until you go really fast. So you got to go straight for like 100 feet or something. Then you can start laying into turns. Okay. And so that's what I did on my bike, is I would just let go of the brakes for a while and start carving turns. And, I was jumping like 12-foot cliffs, 14-foot cliffs on my sandboard. So I started doing cliffs on my bike.
Wow.
And everyone thought I was nuts.
That's pretty much where it kicks off right there.
Yeah,
wow.
Totally. And it was just natural to me because I'd done it on boards, and it was bikes, and the bikes some of them had front shocks, and you had brakes. So like, oh, this is easy. And it was a direct crossover that was really fun and very good for me.
Yeah.
In the early days. Yeah.
It's crazy. It's good stories, buddy. Really, really good stories. So, obviously you're hitting all these gravel pits on the mountain bike and stuff. So where did the crew come around? Like, who were you riding with? And did these other people, did they see the same thing as you, or did those guys think you're just crazy?
Oh, well, I rode with a lot of guys. Like, I rode with some guys I used to ski with, and I rode with a guy named Craig Olson, who I used to snowboard with and mountain bike with. And he was like an early pioneer that no one really knew. I think he had a couple shots in Crank 2, but he kind of didn't really like to be on film, and kind of made him nervous around a bunch of people. Mm-hmm. So I used to shred with him a lot. And then a bunch of my ski buddies, I have some redneck friends who are just crazy, like just gnarly blue-collar dudes, and they got missing fingers from machinery, and they're like just like wearing like jean jackets, and like they're just tough. But they like to have a good time too, right? And like when they did sports, they were just as tough when they did the sports. So I give those guys a lot of credit for
push the boundaries everything. With you.
Yeah, totally.
All right.
But I was gravel boarding in the 80s, sandboarding and gravel boarding in the 80s, and when I was in Roslyn, snowboarding in '91, I met Christian Bejen, who became the director of the original Crank movies. And he filmed me in '91 snowboarding, and he made a little edit called Alpine Commando, and I was the first snowboarder he ever filmed and published. And then we did another film called the Locomotion, talking about one of the first railways through Canada and how it ended up in the coastal mountain, and they had a little snowboarding, as a reward to get up to the the Western Mountains.
Uh-huh.
And then I filmed with them again in '94. I got sponsored by Burton from a little video I sent of myself with 2 VCRs, some footage like doing some snowboarding and some gravel boarding, and then I'd gotten some good race results. In '93, I went to a World Cup and I got the second fastest training time out of everyone in the world. I ended up getting 24th in the race, but I was on the radar because they're like, "Who's this guy out of nowhere that's got like the second fastest training time?" And so I sent in this video, and then Burton picked me up, and I was like, "Whoa!" And so they hired Christian Bejin to film me for their new movie. But when he came to Kamloops, there was no snow. Like it got really warm for that week for some reason, and it was all melting.
Okay.
And I was like, "Oh no, this is like horrible timing." And so I said, "Let's go to the gravel pit, and we'll rip some runs down the gravel pit." And so we went there, and I was carving up the gravel pit, and he's just like, "You're absolutely crazy, but this is working, you know." And he didn't expect me to be able to do it, but I was carving turns and jumping off cliffs. And
wow.
So then the next year in '95, we did some steep stuff in close to Kamloops for a movie called Pulp Traction.
Ah, yes.
And that was a movie that never really saw the light of day, but you know, it's called classic hidden because it did have, that was the first movie with free riding in it.
Okay.
And we were dropping steeps, and
so is it not available anywhere then? Is it gone?
Yeah, it's really hard to find. I think you might be able to YouTube some of it.
Right.
And I'm going to move up here. I got a broken rib.
Yeah,
my first broken bone. That first Burton movie was called Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego. Okay. But then Pulp Traction started because I was snowboarding in Whistler, and I ran into Greg Stump, who used to make the early awesome ski movies. You know, like Warren Miller watched the one that everyone saw, but
okay.
The cool ones were by Greg Stump. And he asked me, who can do a 360 on a mountain bike? And I go, well, my buddy Richie Slay, I see one doing a BMX. He's like, oh, really? He's like, yeah. And so later that summer, I was tree planting and camping in the woods, planting trees, when I heard the word that they were coming to town to film Richie do a 360 on a mountain bike. And I'm like, what? You know, and in the hills riding steep, free riding back in the day, we called steeps.
Okay.
The early big mountain stuff. So I've been riding steeps for years, and they're going to film Richie for a mountain bike movie? I'm poaching that shoot. And so I got a ride into town, and Richie did his 360, and then he stomped it. Then we partied for a little bit, and he tried it again, and he smoked his face into the ground, got off access. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, the shot where he did do it was out of focus, so they only used a shot where he drove his face into the ground, okay. Which I felt bad about. And so then we actually, myself and Craig Olson and a redneck buddy of mine who was, you know, my partner in crime, we said, well, that's all fine and dandy with these little jumps. Let's go show you some steeps. So we took into some steep stuff close to town, and we started dropping some free ride lines.
Right. And
Blue, the photographer of mine, Christian Bejin, was like a little crazy French Canadian guy. Oh my God! Okay, you're in the movie. And so, unfortunately, that movie freaked a lot of people out because it premiered in California.
Yeah.
And people were screaming, and it's like, you know, we were thundering down slopes and just trying to hang on the bike, and near some crashes, some near close calls, and you know, the dust flying and everything, and everything was so much. It was so racing involved. Like, right. It was all about racing back then.
Yeah. And
so people, this is the first time people had ever seen free riding. And, you know.
Yeah.
So.
That's cool.
It's you know, consider, like, bunny hopping a log back then was considered rad. And we were like, you know, thundering down near vertical pitches and stuff. So it was kind of like right out of nowhere,
just blown away. Yeah. Crazy.
Yeah, so stoked on it. But Specialized was not stoked because
okay. Did they fund the video too?
Well, yeah, they funded it, but they found that they were getting grief from the Sierra Club because we were riding off trail.
Ah.
And we got grief for it.
Right.
And so it was unfortunate because they didn't release the movie.
Oh man.
And for years later, to get any movie footage, that's why we rode sand pits a lot, is because, you know, all the steep stuff that we had some bad land stuff, but that was all, had a little bit of vegetation, some sagebrush.
Right.
And we'd get grief from the Sierra Club. So we started shredding gravel pits. Mm-hmm. And everyone thinks that's all we rode maybe back then, but that's just because we could film it and get away with it.
Right.
Right. Riding rocks and scree slopes and clay and a little bit of everything.
Mm.
But if we rode in the gravel pits, there's nothing anyone could say because the wind would come and scour it and change it anyways.
Yeah.
And so
that's super cool.
Yeah, it was just kind of a weird little thing, and that the way history and things work out,
Yeah, for sure. And I guess that's where obviously freeride was kind of born, which is, incredible. To think as well, it's something that I've personally just grown up with. You never really think about the early years or anything like that, and someone actually looking at a mountain biking and taking it somewhere it wasn't. Do you know what I mean? So cool.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Absolutely. Yeah, it was like Hans Ray had traveled around the world and had made a movie.
Yeah.
But he was, bouncing and balancing on things, and it maybe it was a precursor to free riding, but it wasn't, what I would call free riding. But it was the first big mountain free riding.
Yeah.
That was happening and whatnot, and it just kind of fused, trying to take a skier or snowboarder viewpoint, a line to it of spreading something top to bottom and just picking your own line down the slope. There was no trail. It was just free riding.
Just free riding. I think it's obvious that free riding didn't really catch on straight away, especially with some of the major, maybe the manufacturers not wanting to back it as probably hard as you wanted to. But was there something for you that made you think fuck, there's something in this, I need to keep going with it? Or was there any...
What was in there? Oh yeah, it was fun.
Yeah.
It was a blast.
All right, that'll do.
It was just the thrill of making something when you're scared and there's a uncertainty in the air and everyone gets kind of quiet, and you're like, oh, can that be done? And we were exploring the unknown. We didn't know if wheels would fold. We didn't know if you'd land and get ejected over the bars, or, we learned, if you landed soft or sand, we didn't know about grooming the slopes like they do at Rampage now.
Uh-huh.
It was just so new and so raw, and we were learning all the time. We would go drop loading docks to flat, and that's 4 or 5 feet, and then you'd drop ledges that were head high. Back then we said if it was head high or shorter, it was a ledge. If it was head high or taller, it was a cliff.
Okay.
So we're dropping head high, taller then, and then there were cliffs.
Right.
And how big a cliff could you do? We're doing 10 footers, then we're doing 15 footers, and then 20 footers, and then I think the biggest I landed was a 25-foot down drop, and I tried some 30s, but didn't really go. Bender eventually came and tried some 45s, and now they're landing 50, 60 feet down, I guess, but back then it was all the unknown, right? And it was just seeing what equipment can take, and we're breaking bikes, bending rims, snapping bars. And I chipped my teeth eating handlebars and stems before, and people didn't wear armor, so I started using rollerblade knee pads and stuff.
Oh, really?
And
right.
Yeah,
of course. There was no equipment for this stuff back then, really.
Yeah, so some people would use hockey equipment, but look kind of dorky. So I don't know. I would just kind of try and use some smaller skateboarding knee pads, or actually use some really cheaper rollerblade knee pads, which would be more for all mountain stuff and whatnot, for pedally stuff. But it was so refreshing. It was really fun, and
Yeah. So did things accelerate pretty?
You want to hang out with people that do like-minded things, and the girls back then, all want the cool boys who were badass, and everyone was badass.
Yeah. So
if you wanted to kiss the pretty girls, you had to do some badass things, and so we did.
Chicks dig scars, right?
Totally.
I'm sure Sarah's there, probably not agreeing with us so much.
My wife's right over there. Yeah, she agrees. That's why she loves me. I have lots of scars.
So did things accelerate pretty quickly from sort of I guess founding Freeride to being on the pro team, which was it Fro Riders? Is that right?
Well, the team originally the Rocky Mountain Free Riders.
Yeah. When
it was formed, and we were the world's first free ride team.
Yeah.
I went down to the Interbike trade show, which was in Anaheim at the time. I spent some of my last money that I made paving. And I was like, oh, should I go down there and try and get sponsored, or like this movie thing's kind of cool, new footage and stuff, but you know, like this is my last check and I can buy beer with this, you know. But I spent it on a plane ticket in a hotel room couple nights, and I went and showed some photos of myself and what we were doing, and I got sponsored by Rocky Mountain.
Wow! Right there and then on the spot.
No, I set up the almost, but I had to come home and then we went back and forth with some phone calls and whatnot.
Right.
And negotiated a wage and set up some parameters of what it would take, you know, to fulfill as a sponsorship and whatnot. But they hired myself and Richie Schley and Wade Simmons, who had been racing downhill for them for a year already.
Yeah.
And they picked up Karis Evans and Damien Skeleton, 2 girls. Okay. Who one was a Canadian champ downhiller and one was like riding very aggressive lines on the shore. Right. I think it was Wade's ex-girlfriend. But they had picked up the 5 of us. The girls never really followed through with it, you know, and were there for a little while us guys, you know, grabbed the mic and went for it. And so we eventually became the Fro Riders.
That's the one, okay.
Cannondale tried to trademark the word free ride.
Right.
And sent a cease and desist to Rocky Mountain after we said, introducing the Rocky Mountain Free Riders. And so we put an ad in Bike Magazine that said, "Oh, sorry, did we say Free Riders? We meant the Rocky Mountain Pro Riders." We had pictures of with these giant Afro wigs, you know, to have some fun with it, right?
Yeah.
But it totally caught on, and some humor and some controversy really grabbed people's imaginations. And you know, we started getting plane tickets from around the world, and we were in magazines and like I say, the early movies of the time, and it kind of blew up. And we'd go riding with different people, different places. They'd try and kill us, take us to their gnarliest trails. And, you know, pressure would be on, and we loved it. We dug that kind of thing, but also it was like, let's see what you got. So we were just cruising around the world riding gnarly stuff. When you get better all the time, right?
Yeah.
Doing it, and it was just amazing time, and kind of spreading the gospel of free ride. Okay. And making money at it, and
yeah, that must have been crazy too, right? When you've been planting trees and all of a sudden you're getting paid to do something you really, really love.
Oh, I know. It was insane. It was awesome. You know, eating in nice restaurants in Europe and just rolling off the plane, and you got there's no bike bags really back then. We had our bikes in paper boxes, but you know, it just felt like a bit like a rock star. And then we had fans and just it's the red carpet wherever we went was rolled out, and it made you feel really cool. And
you can tell, man, there's some fun memories there. You can see it in your face.
Oh yeah, I wish I could tell you some things. I bet Richie Slade could tell you a few things too, more than me even. But it was really fun, and it was so new and fresh that it just grabbed people's imaginations. And for people, you know, you go somewhere and you drop off some like 10, 12, 15-foot cliffs. It blew people's minds, like, because people didn't do that back then. But we knew it could be done, and you know, then after it was done in front of them, people kind of went, "Oh, I guess that can be done." Yeah, you know. Yeah. And whether it was in magazines or in person or in a movie or whatnot, it just really changed what was happening, and got the ball rolling, I guess. I was stoked to be there and lucky to be there.
For sure.
But I'm really thankful to have been there.
Yeah, definitely. And, you know, I mean, it sounds like it's the closest you can be, you know, you can become to being like a rock star, really.
Yeah, in the bicycle world.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, no, you know, there was like, I met some amazing women from around the world who were into the bike world, and some amazing friendships with dudes that are diehard mountain bikers, and just some people from not even inside the bike world who just you happen to stay at their hostel or hotel, or meet someone on a beach or whatnot, and just opening our minds as little redneck Kamloops dudes from the backwoods of BC to traveling the world and hanging out with people who could speak 7 languages, or who knew about welding, or who knew about or just like a local cool resident. It was an mind opening experience for sure.
I can imagine. I mean, obviously something I wanted to touch on a little bit while I have you here, because it's obviously something that you've spoke about in interviews before. I mean, there was obviously probably a bit of a darker side to what you were doing too, which was like the partying side of it. Would you say? Is that something that you kind of
side came later?
Oh, did it? Okay, so
I was always a partier.
Yeah,
I love drinking beer with the guys, and I burned them as well. That's about all I really did.
Right.
And at one point, it was really fun, and it was pretty healthy partying for a while because it was just beer and some weed or whatever. But it was tough because everywhere you'd go, people would want to drink with you.
Yeah,
and do drugs with, and you'd be offered all this stuff all the time, and in Whistler, a lot of the establishments have a promo tab where they have money set aside for people who are good for business. And I was one of those guys that were good for business, because when I came, I usually showed up with a bunch of friends and we'd all get loaded and drop, big wads of cash.
Yeah.
And, sometimes some places would have like $1,500 a night. They would just spend on people who were good for business.
Wow.
So I'd show up and, or they'd drag me walking by the place. Wouldn't even be an ad to go inside. Hey, Tip, come on in,
Yeah.
And it'd be like 2 beers and 2 shooters set up right there, and you'd try and pay. They wouldn't let you pay. I throw $20 in the tip jar, and they throw my money back at me.
Wow.
It was just like free booze, and then plus you run into people at the table from different wherever, and people were always trying to buy you beer, and I just love partying with people and talking with people, so I'd end up getting loaded.
Yeah.
All the time.
Right.
And you're young, you think you're invincible.
Yeah.
And it was tough not to party all the time because it's fun and it's interesting, but you're also getting wasted all the time, which was tough to do. And I had some breakups with some girls, and I'm a pretty emotional guy, and
yeah,
I experimented at one point with some harder stuff, and I'd never really done it before. And when I discovered it, I was like, "Wow, that's really fun!" And I kind of got carried away with it, or got very much carried away with it, and it got a hold of me.
Yeah.
And I spent a number of years doing it. And when I tried to get out, I couldn't get out.
Right.
And I was on myself very much addicted, and very, very. It was like I was possessed by myself, and I would find myself going to do it even though I didn't want to.
Yeah.
It was a nightmare, and it had taken over my life, and I ended up losing everything that I'd built up and everything that I'd loved. And I hid out from my friends and family because I didn't want them to see me like that.
Right.
And I disappeared for a number of years. And it was very fortunate that my dad never gave up on me. My dad pulled me back from some bad places.
Right.
And I eventually went to rehab, and I learned a few things, some tools, they call them.
Do you mind me asking why you sort of made the decision to go to rehab? Was there someone that really pushed you there, or did you realize yourself like this is I'm not in a good spot, I need to go figure
I
shit
realized
out?
I was in a good spot, but I never wanted to go to rehab because I said to myself, you know what, I got myself into this mess, I'll get myself out.
Yeah.
And if I had tried so many times to quit and I'd failed, and I thought if I go to rehab and I fail, I'll be out to sea forever, like I'm never coming back.
Yeah.
And I kind of thought that I'd broken myself. And Sarah, can you give me the charger for the computer? It's going to die soon. Please. Thank you. But it's right there. Thank you. I didn't. Sorry.
Thanks, Sarah.
I went to rehab after my grandma died, and my dad came and said, "You know what? We lost my mom. We lost her grandmother. The family's mourning. Would you please come home and mourn with the family?" And I said, "Yes, Dad." And I came home, and I was sober for a number of months, and I went to rehab. And I screwed up a few times after rehab, for sure.
Right.
But I learned a few things there, like playing the tape forward. When you want to go party, it's all great, the energy's great, and you want to get wasted with the guys and yahoo, but play the tape forward to when, it's a few days later, or a number of days later, because I'd never stopped. I couldn't
Right.
stop.
You
I don't
just keep
sleep very
going.
much, and I
Right.
especially didn't sleep on that stuff. And
Yeah.
booze and alcohol, I would just go around the clock for as many days as I could until I dropped from exhaustion. It was crazy. I was out of control.
Yeah.
You know, so you play the tape to the end of the run, and you're like hungover, broke, you know, jonesing for drugs, and just like that's where it ends. And so you kind of cut it in the beginning before you actually get into it. I learned how to play the tape forward.
Okay.
And you know, eventually I got sober, and there was an old sales rep, Pete Crichton, who gave me one of his bikes from his demo fleet on an old Rocky Mountain, and I started riding bikes again, and I was like, oh my God, that's fun.
Yeah.
And I went down to Crankworks, and I met an incredible lady who rode bikes and was there, Sarah Fenton, who's now my wife. And
Awesome.
She was just so much fun and so cool and so beautiful. And she came from a mountain bike background herself. You know, she was raised in Deep Cove, and she watched the first mountain bikes roll off the truck into the Deep Cove bike store. She actually watched bicycles roll off into the bike store before they were mountain bikes.
Right.
Like early Cook Brothers cruisers and stuff.
Yeah. Okay.
That were precursors to the mountain bike.
Cool.
And so she hung out at the bike store as a young kid when they were mountain bikes, and you know, she was riding big bikes at Whistler, and I was hanging out with her and her friends and shredding laps, and I'm just like, this is awesome. You know, like, what have I been missing? So.
And how long was it in between getting out of rehab to grabbing the bike and going going to Crankworks? Was there a number of months, or is it pretty quick?
Yeah, I was in rehab in March, and then I went down to Crankworks in, was it July or August? I guess probably July that year, and that's when I met my future wife. Amazing. And I ended up deciding after Crankworks visiting. My dad had chaperoned me to Derek Westerland, who made the New World Disorder movies.
Okay.
Who my dad was a school teacher, and he taught him as a young kid. And so he said, you know, Fred wants to get out of town to get away from, you know, the scene and check out Crankworks again, but do not lose sight of him. He will disappear. And so he looked after me. And then I went down and had a good time. And he returned me to my parents safe and sound. And I kept my sobriety. For like a week, and then I relapsed back in Kamloops again, and you know, and then there I go again. Then I stopped again, and then I said, you know, I got to get out of Kamloops, so I want to go back down to Whistler, and I want to get a job. And I got a job doing some construction with a friend of mine who I used to race on the national team snowboarding with, and he let me stay in his house, rented me a room for cheap, and I got a job doing construction. And I really just clung to my sobriety, just being a normal guy doing construction. And then I had hooked up with Sarah again, and we'd done some mountain biking and done some riding, and I really, really fought for my sobriety, and she helped me, and my buddy helped me, and my dad had helped me, and it was tough love, you know, and I really had it going, and I decided, you know, after not very long, that this was the girl for me, and I fell in love. And I introduced her to my parents, and they'd met once. We came. My parent. We had dinner with my wife and my future wife and my parents and whatnot, and I'd visit them in Kamloops with her. But then my parents went to Mexico for holidays, and we were all going to meet up for Christmas, and so. My dad ended up having a stroke and having a heart attack, and he never came back from that trip. Oh, man. Never made it. So the day before New Year's or Christmas Eve, he passed away. And I was very close with my dad, very, very close.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
well, a really, really nice thing, though, that he saw you come out of the back of that dark place, and have turned your life around and have met this amazing person.
Yeah, so I'm so glad that he did see me clean, you know, I think 7 months clean. And he got to meet Sarah, and it was very cool. You know, he was very much an intellectual man, and she's very smart as well. So, and both come from musical backgrounds, and so when they did meet, he had the guitar out, and I kind of said, "Play some music for us." And he's like, "No, no, no." I go, "Come on." So he got the guitar out, and he was singing some songs, and serenaded Sarah for breakfast one morning, joking around.
Wow.
And they hit it off famously, and it was really cool. And he's just like, "You found yourself a good lady," and he was stoked on her.
That's cool.
And
That's really nice.
and my mom said the same thing, and and she got along well with my brother, and she was accepted into the family, and she was the best thing that ever happened to me.
Yeah.
And so, unfortunately, I lost my dad, and I used to joke around that it's the worst thing that ever happened to me. And I'm just like, well, he was a comedian, so I joke around. He's the worst thing that ever happened to him. He can appreciate, because he's a funny guy.
Yeah, man.
And I love him. I miss him. It was a moment of truth. If I was gonna relapse, it would have been then and there, right?
Yeah.
And it didn't happen. I know he's watching everything I'm doing, and I'm trying to make him proud.
Oh,
and
man,
I
for
spent
sure.
so many rides as a young kid out in the countryside with him, and growing up through life, and just I really respected him, and I want him to respect me. So I'm just trying to be a good person and pass on the love to other people, and just make him proud, So
Yeah.
I'm trying to do that.
That's good, buddy.
But
That's
it was
really
a dark
good.
time.
Pardon?
And I've learned some tricks that help me get over it. And some people sometimes write me and say, I'm in a dark place, and how do I do it? And I tell them what I know and what has worked for me. And
Yeah, the thing
I
is as
send
well,
out letters saying,
you have
some
that
people,
platform.
"Thank you."
Sorry, you have that platform that you can use now to inspire people, and that's something that I think you can't take that for granted. Do you know what I mean? Like,
No, exactly.
I had Martin Ashton on the podcast a few months ago, but the amount of response that came back from that, even people that listened to this thing, that were super inspired by him, and that, they've also, had accidents and stuff. And it's a very, very positive thing that you've had these experiences and that you can use your platform to benefit people, right?
Yeah, hopefully, it's that is one positive that you can make out of it, whether you wish it happened or not. I'm not proud of it happening. I wish it never happened, but since it did, I might as well help others, because I know what it's like to be there, and I know what it's like to get out and then get back in, and get out and try and get out and try and get back in, and I know what people are going through.
Yeah.
And so it's so awesome when I do get a letter from someone and say, "You know what? You gave me some tips 3 years ago. I've been sober for 3 years. I just met the love of my life, and I'm riding bikes again, and everything is just awesome. And thank you for teaching me a few things that helped me get a grip on it." And I'm just like, yes, dude.
Yes.
It's a great feeling, and it makes me happy to know that you can help someone.
You can. You can. And that's the thing, with social media and stuff, it's got its really bad points, but it could be someone scrolling an Instagram feed that, here's one of your jokes, and as bad as the joke might be, it might make the day. Do you know what I mean?
Exactly. Hey, that's why I put up there. Sometimes they're good. And when they're good, they're good. When they're bad, they're probably better. Just like me.
Oh, man. So how are you finding being a dad too? Obviously, you have a daughter, Jessime, which is an amazing name.
Dad, Jessime? Being a dad is awesome. It's better than I ever thought. I have my oldest daughter who's 9 and my youngest daughter, Alex.
Right.
And, I have to credit my oldest daughter, too, for helping with my sobriety, because, it got easier and easier when I saw her little face, and she's like looking to you for love and sustenance, and it's her life is in your hands.
Yeah.
And, just to go get wasted, this seems so selfish and so counterproductive to helping raise a family,
Yeah.
And she made it easy. And I used to carry a picture of her in my wallet. It's a little black and white picture. And if I ever felt an urge to get wasted, I pulled that picture and I'm like, boom, no, I don't want to get wasted anymore. I put the picture away and go on my way and get back to work or whatever I was doing, So, but yeah, being a dad is awesome. It's more powerful than anything I'd ever experienced. I love my parents growing up. I've loved a few girls along the way. I love, many bicycles that I've had, some snowboards, and some of the relationships with people that you've had. And I love the outdoors, but I haven't felt anything like the love I felt for my little girls.
Wow.
And it's just like,
It's
it gives you a
powerful, man.
purpose in life.
Yeah.
It's so powerful. And like, just the physical side, like you would fight a grizzly bear with a toothbrush. So, girl, like without even thinking about it,
Yeah.
and just to get up and go and make some money to feed your family and put a roof over their heads, and the drive that it gives you,
Mm-hmm.
and the joy that you get from seeing the little smiles on their faces, and when they hug you and say, "I love you, Dad," and you're just like, "Oh my God, this is like," I mean, it's really cool.
Yeah, man.
And I didn't expect for it to be that cool. Like, I thought it'd be cool, but I didn't know it would be as powerful as that. And I'm very fortunate to have two beautiful daughters and a great mom to help raise them. And
Yeah.
we've got a good little family dynamic. And I'm very, very thankful that this is all happening.
Cool, man.
And my oldest girl is riding a bike, and my little one's on a run bike.
Right.
And so, my wife's ride bikes, so we're a bike riding family.
Yeah.
And it's rad.
Speaking of sort of like making money and stuff, so how did you end up getting into the TV work and the edits with Pink Bike? And I mean, obviously your personality really suits that stuff. You also need to have a podcast. I'm gonna bully the shit out of you until you start a podcast.
Yeah, my own podcast. I've done a lot of television work in the 90s as I was ending my snowboard career, because I got a lot of interviews when I was an athlete just because I gave good interviews.
Uh-huh.
I was always stoked, and I was full of information as well as just passion.
Yeah.
And so they knew if they interviewed me, they were going to get the soundbite they wanted, and I could see them asking different people, and I'm like, oh, they didn't give the right answer. That's not what they're looking for, and that's not it describes the situation. So when it was my turn to get interviewed, sometimes I would hit it out of the park, and I always got interviewed. And I always got my sponsors in there, which was good for me, but also I kind of learned the craft from the side of being an athlete.
Yeah.
And eventually, when I was winding down and ready to retire as an athlete racing World Cup, they asked me to do some reporting for CTV Sportsnet, which was one of the big television stations in Canada.
Okay.
And so I did, and I knew all the guys from racing, so I knew the dirt. And I knew when and right was a good time to talk to athletes, and what to ask them, and when to cut it short, and when to expand to another second question. It was all kind of natural.
Right.
And so I did 4 years of World Cup of snowboarding, and then I did 4 years on a free ride show called The Sacred Ride. And so I knew how to work the mic. I knew the timing of when to talk to athletes and when not to, and a little bit of dealing with directors and all the things behind the scenes.
Right.
And so I had that in my arsenal. And then when I came back from rehab and started riding again and whatnot, I was actually asked to, what was the first one, Sarah? I actually had to introduce a film in the North Shore. Crank 7. And so I went on stage to introduce that and lit it up. And we're like, wow, he's really good with the people, And then I was asked to entertain the crowd at Crankworks for the Deep Summer, and they wanted 15 minutes for the judges to have time to decide the winner.
Right.
So they gave me the mic and said, could you entertain the crowd for 15 minutes, 1,000 people? And I'm like, oh, I can do that.
Oh, yeah, stand up.
So, so I was on fire and just, hamming it up. Had a food fight with Brian Lopes on stage. That kind of came out of nowhere after he gave me a face wash, and I face washed him back, and that it was just really fun.
Yeah.
And then Crankworks asked me, the fellow who did the artwork in the original Crank movies, the Skull Rider and whatnot, put me up for a position for, what was the name of those guys? The Creekside Productions? Whistler Creekside Productions were making some little internet videos on Crankworks, and I hosted those, which turned out quite well. And just using my old media skills, they were all successful. And then I'm trying to plug in here and keep the battery alive. There we go. And then when Crankworks started growing and getting bigger and bigger, and Pink Bike started happening, Pink Bike asked me to go to the 2010 World Championships in Mont Saint Anne. And Sam Hill won that year. Stevie Smith got second.
Yeah.
And I ended up having to save the day because the UCI wanted $1,750 per camera. And they'd rented a little booth, 30 by 30 booth, tent, but they couldn't afford to pay like $1,750 per camera. And so we were shut down to filming inside our booth. And so like, Tippie, can you do interviews? Can you pull people here for interviews? I'm like, yeah, I know everybody. I'll talk to whoever you want. Well, we need like at least a dozen interviews. I'm like, sure, no problem.
Right.
And we got a couple chairs, a fake little fireplace, and I got 48 interviews with like Aaron Quinn, Sam Hill, Steve Pete, Rat Boy, Rob Warner, like everybody.
Right.
Came to the Speak Pipe booth and I interviewed them.
That's cool.
I didn't sleep for days. Like, coming up, like doing homework, background, and good questions for people, and it worked really well. So they asked me to cover the World Championships again when Danny Hart won his incredible rain run.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, Crankworks wanted me to continue doing the footage I did for Creek Crack Productions at Crankworks. So I started doing the daily reports at Crankworks.
Right. Wow.
And they also started asking me to do stuff like at Sea Otter and at Rampage.
Yeah.
At the first opening day of the Whistler Bike Park, and various different little things,
Uh-huh.
And so I just said, yes, I'm into this. I'm doing this. I love this. Bring it on.
Kill it.
And it's really worked out into turning myself into a dual personality in that I'm a rider as well as I'm a host personality, moderator, announcer, whatever I am. I don't know. Just trying to
you do a killer job at it, dude. Absolutely killer. If anybody who doesn't look forward to just the tip it's weird.
No, I love just the tip. It's fun. It's a good time, and I like just the tip because I go get the top athletes, but I also go get just random people that are cool that make up our community, and it's like all the tapestry of freaks that are out there, whether they're a mechanic or just a total bike nerd or whatever they are in the bike world. They're here for a reason. And so I like to get those people in my shows, holding up signs, whatever, or just, wearing some weird clothes or whatever. So I try and get random people on there too. Yeah. Because it really makes up a big chunk of what our bike world is about.
Yeah, and, definitely.
Yeah. I really love doing those shows. They're fun, and I think it comes across in the shows.
Yeah, it does, dude, for sure. It's one of the things we've done this year with the podcast, obviously, along with having your personalities like you and whoever, Loic, whoever it might be. We did a series this year called EWS or Bust, and that followed one of our sponsored riders at Hook It around the Enduro World Series, and then we did a podcast and a video edit after every single round. And it's crazy, like people love that stuff.
Yeah.
And it's so much fun as well, just catching up and, hearing how he got on. And, unlucky he didn't break the top 100. Oh, maybe he did. Yeah, he did. Didn't break the top 50. That was his goal, but it was cool.
Yeah.
People have stories, whether they're personalities or not. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I love it.
So you've recently just moved to YT. Let's just cover this, dude, and we can do some listener questions and wrap up. I don't want to keep you too long today.
Oh, sure. Okay.
So you recently moved to being a brand ambassador for YT. So I'm just curious.
For YT, yeah, young talent.
I know. So what's
the irony is not lost here, that's for sure.
So what's your role at YT? What's it like being a brand ambassador these days? Has the role changed a lot from when you kind of like first started and with social media and stuff like that, or?
My role with YT is to be the director of Good Times.
Yeah.
Which my wife put on my business card, and they just loved it. And their whole, brand is Good Times.
Yeah.
And so, they might have some racers that win races, like excuse me, like Aaron Gwynn. Mm-hmm. But they're keeping the fun in it. Uh-huh. And I don't know what my role exactly is. Like in the old days when I was a pro rider, it was all just hucking cliffs and dropping steeps and providing the thrills and spills of it. Well, it's having some fun for sure. But with YT, they've got so many badass dudes, Andreo Lacondege and Cam Zink, and they've got enduro racers like Brian Renier and some Counts kids like Ace Hayden, all senders, right? Mm-hmm. Ethan Nell from Virgin, Utah, got third in Rampage this year, and Adolf Silva, and all these crazy rippers. I'm not expected to go big because they got lots of guys going big.
Yeah.
If I do some cool stuff, some gnarly stuff, that's a bonus. But they just want me to promote the love of bicycles and the good times. And I'm an addict to mountain biking. I realize I'm an addict, so I just decided to get addicted to good things.
Yeah.
So I'm addicted to mountain biking.
That's cool.
I love it.
That works.
And so, I use my Instagram to spread the good times and get some good shots out there.
Yeah.
I shoot with Marcus Riga and Ellie DeLillo and good photographers.
Mm-hmm.
What's that? Yeah, scare myself a couple times, send some stuff, just every now and then to let them know that I'm still around.
Yeah, keep it in check.
Totally, and you need that thrill yourself to give her now and then, right?
Yeah.
And so I don't really drop anything bigger than 20 feet now, probably.
Mm-hmm.
But I still ride some gnarly, technical, steep lines, and I like to ride them in the night sometimes when it's raining.
Wow. Okay.
Just to really kind of like, oh yeah, okay, this is kind of gnarly, but when it's over, it's gonna feel good, and when it is, it does. But it's about having a good time on the bike, spreading the message,
yeah,
and sharing the good times.
Very good.
And so it's I get it, they get me. And I've been with Rocky for 19 years.
Yeah, I was going to say you were on those for ages.
In the world of bike companies and whatnot. So it was time for a change.
Right.
And YT was into it, and I think they're like the coolest brand out there right now. And so for them to pick up an old guy like me, a company called Young Talent, I'm a young at heart,
Yeah.
So that works out. But at 48 years old, to get a sponsorship from the hottest brand in the world is kind of funky. But still paving the way in a way, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But what I did is I changed it from 48 years old to level 48.
Level 48.
Level 48 sounds way more badass than 48 years old. So that's what I'm going with.
I like that. That's
Over
awesome.
the hills is picking up speed.
I turned level 31 last week, and I'm starting to feel like I'm nearing the end of the video game, to be honest.
Oh my God, level 31, eh? Well, you don't look 31.
Ah, thank you.
But we can remember when you did.
Oh man, that's cool. All right. The Moment movie.
The Moment, yeah, I saw it finally,
dude.
It's awesome.
Okay? I'm a little confused what's going on with The Moment. Is the full film finished, ready to go?
It's finished. It's good to go.
Okay.
It's an hour and 22 minutes. It's a documentary.
Yep.
It's got old footage with new interviews, and it has a little riding scene at the end where we go back to one of the places that we, started filming for the original Freeride movie that kind of really hit off people's imagination, Cranked 1.
Yep.
So we went back to the gravel pits, but it's an awesome movie.
It looks so good.
Oh my God! Just seeing some of the footage I haven't seen before,
right?
And seeing some of the guys on the shore sending it, and seeing some of us sending it, and I saw a photo of myself like super young,
around 31, right?
Short black hair and no wrinkles and no scars, and young handsome dude, and I'm just like, what the? It really tripped me out,
right.
And I was just like, oh my God, I'm old. Because you can see the contrast, you know what I mean? Like, I'm just like, wow. It really, that shot really kind of like shook me for a second. But I really enjoyed it. It's really funny. And she did a great job of telling the story.
Is it available for people to buy or no?
It will be available for people to buy. She's going to go on a tour with it for several months.
Okay.
Taking it around to premieres and doing it that way.
Right.
There was the world premiere at the Whistler Film Festival. Then they had one in Vancouver, and then they just had one in Squamish.
Okay. And
then it goes all around different places.
Cool.
If you would like to do a premiere, you can go to the website and organize one of your own and have one in your hometown too if you'd like it.
I've done that today. Because we did the European premiere for Zink's film, Reach for the Sky,
Okay.
And we got a pretty packed out cinemas, like 3,500 people. And obviously we'd have been in Sheffield too, so we had like Petey Dog and Josh and everyone came over and watched it. So I reached out today to see if we could do a premiere, like a UK premiere of
Oh, that'd be awesome.
of the moment. I think that'd be cool, eh?
Well,
So-
maybe that'll be one of my first trips to England in a long time. If you do one in Sheffield,
Hell yeah. Sounds like a date.
my wife wants to come too.
Yes, of course. Bring Sarah. Make a holiday out of it. All right, man. Let's do some listener questions real quick, and then we can get you out. of
Listener questions, okay.
Yes.
All right. Well, you know what? If you're going to take a test, you should take it in a restaurant because the customer is always right. Okay, bring them on. Let's see what we got.
All right. I'm just cranking my phone up because you posted just before we started going live, didn't we? So I will find a few off there for you. 1 second. Man, got notifications coming like crazy. All right. So, first listener question. At Ruffle Surf on Instagram. What's the best trail you've ever rode?
Ruffle Surf. What's the best trail I've ever rode? Hey, Ruffle Surf, how are you? Nice to see you out there. Can I hear you?
In Instagram.
He's one of my internet buddies.
Oh, is he? Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah. We never met, but we're just friends like online. It's
Nice.
cool. Did you meet my wife? Met him? You met him? Was her bike park? Oh, cool. Yeah, it's a crazy world.
It is.
My wife says nice guy.
I believe it. It
So
sounds
the
like a
best
good
trail
guy.
I've ever rode. You know what? Like I've ridden a lot of good trails in a lot of different countries, and I have to say that the best time I've ever. That's not the best time I've ever had, but the best trail ever. Oh God, Ritalik. I did a heli drop this summer.
Okay.
That was insane. Steep rock off the top, and then this like high speed ridge lines, and then down through the woods, and then high speed through the forest, and then technical rock drops, and then into another open subalpine bowl, and then man-made flow trails mixed with tech sections all the way to the valley, like thousands of vertical feet and no braking bumps and perfect dirt with a helicopter to take you back up.
Were you in heaven?
Oh, Ritalik is heaven. Ritalik is mountain bike heaven. They got it going on, and I've never seen anything quite like it. Like it's just insane food every night, and I love frisbee, so you can play frisbee golf with
Right.
lights.
Okay.
I'm into like night riding and stuff too, so you can play frisbee golf at night. Cranking music and partying in the woods beside the lodge, and then shred all day with a helicopter.
Win.
And just the views are amazing there. And they've also got these like big LRT lights, or LMTs, light military travel vehicles.
Okay.
They're like gnarlier than Univogs, and you can shuttle them with these giant oversized trucks that are super way smoother than shuttling in a 4x4. Or you take the helicopter.
Right.
So usually on a 3-day trip, you do 1 day of helicopter and 2 days with the shuttles, which are awesome. But that trail, that last heli drop I did was just out of hand. So
Sweet.
if I had to give a first place, that would have to be it.
Sweet. Very good.
Yeah.
All right. Next listener question. At Zach, I'm probably going to screw your Instagram name up, dude. Sorry. So it's at Zach Michael Ides. All right. You probably get this a lot, Brett, but as one of the pioneers of freeride, what are your thoughts on it at the moment, and where do you think it's heading?
As a pioneer of freeride, what are my thoughts of the current freeride scene
Yeah.
and where it's going?
And where is it going?
Oh man, I think that the grounds have been set. It's just going to keep just getting tweaked, like more tricks, more spins.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of riders are going to cross over. Like Ryan Nyquist coming into Crankworks and getting third last year was awesome.
Yeah. We have a UK guy too right now, BMX rider called Harry Main. He's really big in the UK. Yeah. You'll have heard of Harry Main, right? So he's now transitioning to riding mountain bikes a little more, mainly skate park stuff, but I've seen him ride a downhill bike too. So I think...
Oh, I believe it. Yeah, there's going to be so much talent coming into our sport that it's just going to blow our minds. Like I saw Richie Slay hit little 9-foot, 11-foot cliff drops that I was doing back in the mid 90s, late 90s, and he'd throw a little tabletop in there, like a little tabletop. And I thought, one day there's going to be like insane BMXers doing insane stuff on mountain bikes because you can, right?
Yeah.
And they're going to cross over from like park and street to doing it in the dirt and the gravel in the mountains. And, you know, like you look at slopestyle, like Rampage, some of it looks like a little bit like slopestyle, and that's happening, right?
Yeah.
And so not just BMXers crossing over, but like many different athletes crossing over. I find that mountain biking is that one common denominator sport that seems like athletes from all different sports all kind of do and meet in the middle. Like skiers or snowboarders or surfers or, you know, hang gliders or rock climbers or whatever sport you do, the one sport they all seem to do with everyone else is mountain biking, which is at the center of the hub. And so I think there's awesome athletes that come into mountain biking from all different sports that rock, you know, like Casey Dean, the skier, you know, and or, you know, there's surfers that come in that are awesome, and whatever different athletes come in. Everyone
Gwyn too, like coming from moto.
Aaron Gwyn coming in from moto. He did BMX too, BMX and moto and whatnot.
That's a good observation.
So I think that's fascinating. Yeah, totally. But the BMXers for the freestyle part, of course, I think are going to take it, and as well as mountain bikers. They just grew up mountain biking. They don't know any other sport. They just know mountain biking. They're going to take the tricks and take it into the mountains. Yeah. So there's going to be like wilder, more technical stuff going into the future. But as well, there's going to be diehards that are just like it's simple and are just doing their dead sailors and you know, carving lefts and rights, their favorite tricks down the slopes.
Yeah,
that's going to keep on going forever because it's just really fun. You know,
too true.
It's just and it's sustainable for everybody. Everyone can roll on a bike and get out there and have a little bit of fun off the trail, off the woods, and smell the mountain air. I think that won't change. The upper levels will just keep getting pushed by people, you know.
Yeah.
Someone's going to school Nikolai Rogatkin one day with like more variations, and you know, they'll be like, Brandon who? You know, like 50 years from now, they're not going to know any of us, right? Yeah. And it'll be some latest dude doing a six flips with 5 twists, you know, not even holding on to the bike.
Probably Pastrana's
or whatever.
Kid or something.
In the future. Who knows? It's going to be sick.
Yes.
Bikes get better, riders get better, and we're just happy to be here right now, you know?
For sure. Next one.
It's a long answer, eh?
Yeah, Holy. It's good, man. Keep vibing. It's no problem. At Craig on Instagram. That's a good name. What has been the most dramatic change in mountain biking, and what do you think is missing from the sport since you started? That's a good question. I'm into that.
What is the biggest change in mountain biking?
Yeah, and what's missing since you started?
Well, there's been some big changes, you know, like in mountain bikes or mountain biking, I guess.
Let's go with biking.
With the bike? Yeah, the bike. Well, you know, I like suspension. Suspension was a big thing. When I got suspension, I was like, this is awesome. You know, like I used to ride a dirt bike, and then I was riding fully rigid mountain bikes with like curved metal forks and like a hardtail. Like my feelings fell out. You know, like you're just like, you're trying to take your hands off the handlebars. Like, oh my God. Is this fun? Yeah, it is. I'm going to do it again, but I can't hang on to anything anymore. Then we got suspension, and it was so good. Hydraulic brakes, you know?
True, yeah.
Like using like Canties and V brakes, you know, you're just like crunching, you're using 2 fingers, using your middle finger, you're switching fingers between your fingers, 2 fingers, then go single just to get some power to brake. You get hydraulic brakes, you got 1 finger braking, you're like, I can stop. So you can let it go and go fast, and when you want to stop, you can stop. That was awesome.
Yeah.
You know, wider bars. Little skinny bars trying to do northeast shit was just crazy.
Good for bar spins, though.
Long stem, skinny bars. The bars are almost like half as wide as the bars were wide. You could go through narrow trees quite well, but, you know, that was ridiculous. You know, moving into the future, you know, like nice rubber, like tires with soft rubber, like, if I could send some Maxxis tires that I'm riding now back to myself back then with like some Minions, nice soft grippy Minions back to myself then, it'd be unreal. You know, I found the tires I used at Rampage. Right. And I used these Specialized tires that were like plastic.
Really?
You know, like I had Maxxis before then I got sponsored by Specialized from Rocky, and I had to use these tires. They were like hard plastic, and I'm just like, what was I thinking? You know? And then now with the more modern age, the suspension seat post. I remember back in the day, we took like, those hand strengtheners, like a spring on it to strengthen up your hand grip.
Yeah.
We used to take those apart, and then someone even made a commercial version where they had a ring around your seat collar and around your seat tube.
Yeah.
Spring is called a height right. And so you reach down, you undo your seat post clamp, and the spring stretches out and takes your seat up. Like you got, that much distance. And then when you unloosen the clamp and sit down, it goes to nothing. So you had like that much range.
Yeah.
Which, was better than nothing. But now that they have suspension seat posts, or a telescopic seat post to climb and descend on the same ride in different sections, I use it more than I change gears. Awesome. So that's just a great thing. And you don't have to stop. You just keep flowing and whatnot. So that's cool. Awesome. What else with the bikes? Like that? The angles are awesome, like slacker head angles. And they're strong. They don't break. God, if I could show you all the broken bikes I've had, like over the years, you would just be blown away. It's a huge pile.
Sure. Yeah, I bet. 2 more, if that's okay.
Oh, for sure. I got it. Yeah, give me.
Dude, all right. We got at Toby_ASM on Instagram. Could you talk about the impacts freeride has had on your body in terms of injury and general wear? I think that's fitting, seeing as you sat with a broken rib right now.
Yeah. You know what? I've been very lucky. I haven't hurt myself that much, really. Like I've had lots of flesh wounds. I've seen my Achilles tendon. I had a scar here. I flipped up and I saw my skull.
Right. Wow.
I've seen, my elbow bone. I've seen my shin bone. I've had hundreds and hundreds of stitches. Or at least 200 and something stitches, 10 here, 10 there, 5 here, 10 there,
Yeah.
I've separated my shoulders just slightly. I've dislocated this one snowboarding.
Okay.
I've done an MCL, just a slight tear in my knee, but otherwise I've been very lucky. I broke a rib just in Portugal, my first broken bone ever.
No way.
Last week, yeah. I did some fast riding with Johan Poldgeiter.
Okay.
And Eric Ermisch, the original YT rider.
Yeah.
They're like top 100 World Cup riders. They qualify top 80, and with a good run, they'll be top 50. But, they're ridiculously fast for just a normal old dude like me. So I was riding with them, and it was awesome. I was getting away with some fast runs. And after like 4 or 5 days, I took it easy for a run. I was just like, wait, this is getting a bit crazy. I backed off, and I just hit it like a little series of drops in a row, and I landed to the far right on one, and I clipped the pedal, went over the bars, landed right in my back, and I landed on my pump, and it broke my rib.
No way.
And so I never really had a broken bone, and I'm like, wow. And all my friends think I'm an alien because I've fallen off 42-foot cliffs, and I was up and partying back in a 3rd-story building, and I got right up and just I never broke a bone or anything. No ligaments, no tendons, no broken bones, no concussions.
It's probably all that planting trees. Keeps you healthy.
Yeah, totally. And so to know that I'm part human is kind of relieving in a way.
Yeah.
But I've been very lucky. I stretch a lot, and
Right.
I probably know how to crash, I guess, pretty good. So,
Yeah.
but obviously I've been very, very lucky, and know when to pull the trigger and when to back off. Hopefully, But my body's been very good. Although I'm just riddled with scars. I've chipped my teeth. I got scars on my lips and my elbows and my back and across my stomach, and I look like an old gladiator. But it's all just flesh wounds.
That's it.
It's just superficial, but just on the outside.
All right, bro. Last one.
Okay.
And a good one to end on, I think. At The Road Warrior on Instagram. Do you have any tips on staying rad despite family commitments, life in general? You always seem so happy and positive.
Oh, you know what? The number one tip for having a family and still being able to shred and keeping your job and still being able to shred, night riding. Oh my God. I'm sponsored by Night Rider lights, and I got lights that are like 3,600 lumens on my bars and my helmet. So I can go ride any trail, any steepness. And the fact that no matter what happens during the day, I can go for a night ride when my girls go to bed. Keeps me mellow, keeps me positive.
Okay.
because sometimes you get busy, you can't go for a day ride, or
Yeah.
it's your little girl's Christmas concert, and or this or that, or you've got a job to do. So as the day winds down and the sun goes down, and I didn't get a shred in, I'm like, it's all good. I'm going for a night ride. And so the fact that I can do that makes everything okay. And my girls go to bed at 8:39. I go shredding at 9:30.
Yeah.
Go till midnight, or 1 or 2 in the morning, a big ride, or pound some shuttles or whatever.
Right.
It's just always there at the end of the day, and that makes me happy. But sometimes it's nice to day ride as well too. So I'd have to say the other thing is trying to be organized. I'm kind of like a carefree dude. I'm not the most organized dude in the world, but just try and just have everything ready to go. Keep everything tight. Have make a list, old school style, and keep it super organized so that when it's time to go for a rip, everything's ready to go. I keep bags packed, like a travel bag. I keep a backpack, Ergon travel bag,
right,
or a riding pack, stocked, ready to go. So all I have to do is step into, like, I go down to my man cave, and it's like stepping into a phone booth. I got everything but the cape all ready to go. And so I step in, I step out of that door, a few minutes later, fully ready to go, helmet, gloves, glasses on, bag packed, as well as a travel bag for longer trips. So being organized and night riding.
Good tips. Tips from the tip. All right.
Keep you ready to go for a shred at any time. And another thing, like an important thing too, is when I walk into my man cave, if my bike needs work, and sometimes you leave it, and then you go and you got to go do something, you take care of it. You forget that you have to change this little broken bolt, or your gears are slipping or something. So when I walk in my man cave, I leave the bike facing in if it needs work. And if it's good to go for the next trip, I turn it around so it faces the door.
Nice.
And so when I come to my man cave, if it's facing out, I know it's just perfect, 100% good to go. But if it's facing in, why is it facing in? Oh, I have this little cable that slipped. Okay. And then I work on it. So then as soon as it's ready, then I face it out. Right. So it's good to go.
I like it.
And I charge as soon as I come in from my night ride, I charge the night ride batteries. Mm-hmm. So they're good to go as soon as I come out, and little things like that.
Yeah,
I think are streamline you to be as efficient as you can, to be a good dad and a good employee, and get your shred in.
And keep saying too.
Yeah, totally.
All right, man. Well, it's been an absolute blast sitting chatting with you for a little while. I'm not sure how long we've been sat here, like an hour and a half. So I want to say a massive thank you.
What time is it? 1:25. It has been that long.
Yeah,
Holy.
time flies, dude.
I probably talk a lot, don't I?
It's great.
You
need to start a podcast.
My wife's like, probably.
You need.
Do you have to trim this thing down now? Are you going to cut some of me out?
No, not at all. I don't know how to edit. Come on, man. You need to start one of these on your own. You need to You need.
Yeah,
to
one day I
that.
probably
you
should.
Need to. It'd be, with the contacts you have, and it'd be so good. It'd be long, but it'd be really good.
Probably would be. They probably wouldn't want to hear all me after he just cut me out. Have everyone else.
Is there anything you want to say before we wrap up? Like, is there anyone you want to thank or anything like that? Like, feel free.
Oh, I'll thank all my sponsors for sure. And I like just everyone like that is watching on Instagram and Facebook. Of course, my family, my wife Sarah Fenton Tippie. Check her out on Instagram. She's got some great stories and some good humor. I steal a lot of material from her, to be honest.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, trade secrets.
Well, I steal jokes from everybody, but I steal some good ones from her. The good ones, she says, of her. My sponsors, Riders Eyewear, Maloya Clothing, Magura Brakes, Spank Bars, Ergon Grips, YT Bicycles, of course, Maxxis Grips, MV Tires, MV Wheels, 510 Shoes, the Bicycle Hub Shop. He does a great shop in North Van. He works on bikes, retail, no retail, just service only.
Okay.
Whistler Blackcomb, the Ava Whistler Hotel, Night Rider Lights. Thank all my sponsors.
I think
I don't know. I better stop. It reminds me of the guy who's addicted to brake fluid. He says he can stop anytime. And I'd like to thank you for having me on here. And so thanks so much.
It's cool, man. Absolute pleasure, honestly. Absolute pleasure to sit and have a chat with you. And again, everyone, if you are listening, hopefully you are, and you have, hit Brett up. Make sure you're following him. Make sure you say like you've enjoyed the episode and all that sort of stuff, because it's great to hear some feedback. And it's been a wrap. It's been fun, dude.
Awesome.
Have a great
I'll leave you with my favorite quote from Henry Rollins from the band Black Flag.
Okay.
There's no free time. There's no spare time. There's no next time. There's only lifetime. Go.
Boom. Catch you soon, bro.
See ya, Davey. Thanks, man.
Dude. Peace.
See you, bro. Ciao. Ow!
You. All right, friends. There we go. Episode number 38 with Brett Tippie, the godfather of freeride, the director of Good Times. Didn't disappoint. A great conversation. I hope you guys agree. If you have enjoyed the episode, please go to iTunes, leave a review, share it with your friends. Just help spread the message. You wouldn't even believe how much it helps. So thank you again for listening. If you don't already, at the Hook It Podcast on Instagram, drop us a follow. Facebook, the Hook It Podcast. Don't forget to fill out your guest of the year things too. Go in the show description, click the link, go through, fill that out. And make sure that you vote, because there's a cool prize available for somebody. And the next episode will be out next week, actually, and it's a special episode, something a little bit different, and I hope you guys are going to like it, because I'm scared. But yeah, more on that soon. All right, have a great week. Enjoy it. It's festive. Ho, ho, bloody ho. Peace out.